ESBR Boxing, we are back, myself and Paul Kelly. That means only one thing, that we are here in preview mode, but we're here in preview mode with world title action coming this week. IBF World Featherweight action, to be precise, taking place at the Turning Stone Resort and Casino between Luis Alberto Lopez, who we are big fans of on the preview show, and the challenger Reiya Abe. Just to go through, I suppose, a little bit of the tail of the tape here. Obviously, Abe's 25-3 record, 10 KOs, Japanese fighter who's 30 years old. Luis Alberto Lopez, as I said, is known obviously to fans here as a guy with a 29-2 record, 16 KOs. Most recently, victories over, I suppose, including for British interest, Warrington and Conlon, but with also a recent victory over Joet Gonzalez, 12-round UD. Paul, that's just giving a bit quick to the tape, which we don't usually like to do, but I like to give Alberto Lopez a long introduction because, as mentioned, he is a favourite of the show. What I'm going to ask you is, down obviously in that featherweight division, there's numerous champions, obviously a lot of interest down in those lighter weights. What I'm going to ask you, the first question I'm going to ask you though is this. The other champions, obviously, in the division. Is Luis Alberto Lopez, compared to them, so we've got likes of Ray Vargas, Espinoza, the strongest champion at featherweight, or would you have one of those other names? Obviously, Figueroa, you're a big fan, obviously, aren't you? Brandon Figueroa, interim champion as well. I'll allow you to put him in the mix as well as a potential belt holder. But is Luis Alberto Lopez the strongest champion at featherweight, or another one of those names, please?
Yeah, thanks, mate, for that eloquent introduction. To answer your question, mate, I think when you're talking about strongest champion, yeah, I do see Luis Alberto Lopez as the strongest champion at 126 pounds. I think in the sense that he's made a couple of defenses now after beating Warrington. Again, not a lot of people give him a chance against Warrington, and he got a decision in Leeds. Like, that shows you that he definitely did enough to win the fight. Then he makes his first defense in Belfast again. A lot of people, including myself, thinking Conlon, that was going to be his crowning night. But he just showed it. He's actually probably a bigger puncher than his record suggests. He's so unorthodox as well. Then he showed he can box as well, and he outpointed Joey Gonzalez last time out, and it was a close enough fight. But yeah, mate, I think he is the strongest champion. The reason I say that is I think this division's kind of up in the air a little bit at this moment in time. But obviously you've got Nick Ball fighting for the following week here, actually, isn't it, against Ray Vargas on the AJ Ngannou undercard for the WBC title. So yeah, you've got to have Ray Vargas up there as one of the strongest champions, but he's obviously coming back down to featherweight after having been up at super featherweight to challenge Oshaki Foster. So yeah, he's got the WBC belt. Then you mentioned Espinoza obviously beat Rubisi Ramirez against all odds last time out. So you can't say that he's a really strong champion because he hasn't had any defenses as such. Obviously had Lee Wood, but he's vacated the belt. The WBA, nobody now a champion there as far as I'm aware. So yeah, for me, mate, I think he is. Luis Alberto Lopez is the strongest of the champions at featherweight right at this moment in time. Don't get me wrong, he's got a tough fight against Reiya Abe here this weekend. But yeah, mate, Figueroa is definitely up there, but he's not a champion yet. Watch this space. But yeah, to answer your question, mate, I think Luis Alberto Lopez, to me, is the best champion at 126 pounds.
You know what, Paul? We are in straight agreement here. I remember you and I were discussing before, obviously, the sort of, I suppose, the state of this current division. We obviously had Ramirez. We actually did tell him Robert Ramirez was kind of ready to go at some point. We didn't necessarily rate him that highly. And I think so the jury's still out a bit on, obviously, and Espinosa obviously has become the champion, but a few more defences will put him up there with Alberto Lopez potentially and able to sort of draw those comparisons. I know you're a big fan of the Wrecking Ball, who's fighting Vargas, as you say, as well. So he could be the champion soon as well. So yeah, we don't know how that's going to play out. But I agree with you, fully agree with you, frankly, about Alberto Lopez's strengths. Like you said, going to Leeds, getting a decision, how many rounds must he have won there? And the Conlon one was, I think, shocking in the sense that I predicted Conlon to beat him, frankly. But it was those punches from sort of different angles as well. Really, really unconventional, but also very, very exciting to watch that really turned the tide. And it turned us in many ways into being a big fan of Luis Alberto Lopez. But you mentioned the fact that this is a potential banana skin for Lopez. I'm going to ask you kind of just to unpick those thoughts there. I mean, Abe is like I said, 25-3 record. Most recent victory was actually over Kiko Martinez. Not sure how much you could read into the Kiko Martinez. Probably 75 years old now, still going. But I think other names he's fought in Japan, etc. As well. So not necessarily has experience in some ways of traveling like Lopez has. But how much of a test do you think this is? How much of a potential banana skin do you think this is before we go into our final predictions?
Yeah, thanks, mate. I think when you look at the rankings, they've got. I know BoxRec have Abe up there as like the top 5 or 6. Like he's don't get me wrong, his record's decent. Is he a massive puncher? No, only 10 knockouts in his 25 wins, 3 defeats on there. against lower level opposition, you would say. And like we're not going to sit here and say we're experts in Japanese boxing, like but there seem to be obviously quality fighters from there. Obviously, Naoya Inoue leading the way, but like at what level are some of the other ones? Is Abe anywhere near that level? I highly doubt it. Um, but yeah, obviously you mentioned the Kiko Martinez victory back in April last year. That's a good win because obviously Kiko Martinez kind of enjoyed a little bit of an Indian summer there before his eventual retirement. Kind of a legend of the sport. But it's a good win on paper, a good name. But at what level? I think now you're talking about when he's fighting Luis Alberto Lopez. You're talking about the best featherweight in the world eventually. So is it a potential banana skin? Yes, but I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm an expert on Reiya Abe. So I do expect, we'll come on to predictions, I do expect Lopez to probably get the job done here. But yeah, I can kind of see why this fight definitely does have a bit of interest, and I wouldn't be surprised if a few people were picking the Japanese fighter to win. But yeah, banana skin maybe, but I don't think he'll flip on the banana skin. Put it that way.
No, I'd go totally agree with you, Paul. I think it's like you say, it's an unknown quantity, isn't it, when you've got these fighters that tend to fight in their kind of home country and then they get a kind of, like you say, good win against Martinez, who's joining in the summer, but we can't really see where the level is, I don't think. But again, also features quite highly on the rankings as well. So potential banana skin and a worthy challenger when you look at the other names that Lopez has already fought, for example, that's still around. I think he's only one behind Warrington, Abe in the rankings as well. So it'd be interesting maybe to see him have had that fight before going into Alberto Lopez, but we're not going to get to see that. We'll straight into Lopez. So you mentioned there that you think Alberto Lopez will win. But what I'm going to ask you, Paul, is to just unpick that slightly and to say whether you think it will go 12 rounds, whether you think it'll be a KO, if so, what range, and essentially how you think the fight will play out, please.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I do think Luis Alberto Lopez will win it, and to keep it short and sweet, I actually think he might get another knockout here. I think he'll get back on the knockout train after beating Joey Gonzalez on points. I think he's gonna get the knockout again. I would probably say around the mid rounds. But I expect it to maybe be competitive for 4 rounds, but I ultimately expect the unorthodox nature, the way he throws his punches, Luis Alberto Lopez. You can't telegraph them because you don't know where they're coming from. They're coming from his ankle once, and then next time they're going to be coming from up here. Do you know what I mean? You don't have a clue where he's throwing his punches from. Um, and like, that makes him sound reckless, maybe a little bit reckless, but you don't want to get caught on the end of one of those because there's dynamite in those hands. And yeah, I think he is going to win this fight via stoppage, which would be a bit of a statement to become the first man to beat Abe via knockout. So yeah, I'm going to Luis Alberto Lopez mid round, maybe 6, 7, 8 roughly. Lopez knockout. What about yourself?
You know what, Paul? We're straight down the line, mate. We're straight down, straight batting this back. I'm in complete agreement with you, frankly. I think Alberto Lopez KO, like you say, look at his record. Obviously, before Warrington, a lot of KOs coming in that sort of run of form there. Warrington's obviously a championship fighter. Got to the end of that fight. Obviously, got the points against Gonzalez, but we saw what happened with Colin. I think this is going to be another stoppage victory for Luis Alberto Lopez. Sadly, that's all we've got time for. Unfortunately, we are having to stop ourselves here, but we're going to, before I bid you farewell, what I'm going to say is go check out the channel. We've got loads of other content, obviously big fight breakdowns, previews and reviews from shows in and around this date, ahead of this date, and reviews obviously from shows that took place earlier. Let us know in the comments whether you agree or disagree with myself and Paul, whether you think Lopez has got this sorted by KO, or whether you think that this actually is a potential banana skin. Our fans from Japan, please let us know whether we're sleeping a bit on Abe here. Paul, as always, thank you very much for joining me. Guys, as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you after the fight for some review action. Thank you very much and goodbye.